Okay, hello guys. So, welcome po sa mga bago. So, actually last week 'no, nag-start na kami ni Gian. So, basically tapos na kami dito sa, basic, introduction about radiobiology. Ah, since meron po nadagdagan na dalawa and I'm going to use a lecture video today, so I have decided na ulitin na lang ulit yung, PowerPoint. So, para maka-catch up din po yung mga, ah, ibang, classmates ninyo. For an example, si Annalyn and si Kaikai and si, Sofia 'no, at least 'no, para makita nila na yung lessons din. So, advantage lang 'to kay Gian kasi, parang ire-review na lang niya ulit 'tong slides. Okay. So, start na tayo. So, welcome to Radiobiology and Radiation Protection. So, take note guys na sa curriculum nyo and sa curriculum namin before, so sabay silang inaaral, yung Radiobiology and Radiation Protection. Pero sa curriculum po ninyo is nakahiwalay si Radiobiology kay Radiation Protection. So, same lang naman din po yung lessons or topic na aaralin, no? Pinaghiwalay lang. Yun lang ang pinaghiwalay. Okay? Pinaghiwalay lang sila. Now, from the word itself, radiobiology, so we're talking about the radiation and biology pertaining to the study of body or uh, study of the structural units of our parts or body. No? For example, isa dyan sa biology is we're pertaining or referring to cells. No? So, basically sa radiobiology, ang papapag-aralan natin is how does radiation affect our body, especially sa cells, no? DNA and such as RNA and all. So, um, makikita natin kung um, ano yung certain dose na pwedeng maka-harmful sa ating body parts or sa ating katawan. So, take note guys, sa bawat part ng ating katawan, iba't ibang dose limit po ang meron tayo. So, pag sinabi nating dose limit, sabihin limit hanggang saan lang pwedeng maka-receive ng dose or radiation yung ating certain part. For an example, kaya meron tayong tinatawag na technical factors, no? Technical factors, yung KVP, MVP, KVP, MA, MVP tuloy, MA, MAS, no? Milliampere, tapos seconds, no? MAS, KVP. So, technical factors na yun yung determine kung gaano kataas and gaano kababa yung radiation or X-ray na malalabas na X-ray tube at marireceive ni patient. So, hindi lang KVP, MAS yung ating may encounter, no? Meron tayong different radiation quantities and units. So, hindi na to yung katulad ng physics na meters, kilometers, or kilogram. Hindi na yung ganong basic na unit. So, since radiation, no? So, more on radiation quantities and units. Yun yung mga Shevert, rad, yan. Yung mga units na talagang related sa radiation. Okay? So, start na tayo. And sa radiation protection naman, so, from the word itself, radiation, no? Protection, of course, protection about radiation. So, nandito yung ating mga OSL device, yan, yung mga solid state detectors, yung mga ganyan, may encounter natin yan. Okay? Okay, so, ito muna tayo sa review, no? Ito muna tayo sa review of basic radiation concepts. So, basically, radiation is the process of emission of energy by atoms and the transmission of this energy through space. Okay? So, take note guys na yung mga definitions dito. So, ito na siya talaga. Hindi na siya pabago-bago unlike sa human anatomy na pag sinabi mong pancreas, is sobrang dami niyang definitions and sobrang dami niyang functions. However, dito naman 'no sa radiobiology ang kaibahan nga lang niya is si radiation, yung mga ano natin dito, yung mga meaning and definitions, kung ano po yung naandito sa PowerPoint, ganito rin po yung nasa book and ganito rin din po yung mare-receive niyo sa 'pag nag-review na kayo sa board exam. Ganyan din yung mababasa niyo or makikita niyo sa mga questionnaires regarding sa mga, ah, radiation na, meaning, okey? So hindi na kailangan siyang masyadong i-explain 'no, at hindi na kailangan maghanap ng ibang, definition kasi kung ano yung nandito, yun na talaga siya. Okey, so 'pag sinabing emission of energy, transmission of this energy through space, ang tawag po dun is radiation, okey? So, radiation 'no, since may ION siya, radiation, for example, radiation, transmission, um, collision, yung mga ION, ibig sabihin processmatic. So, it is the process of emission of energy by atoms and the transmission of this energy through space. So radiation may also be imagining as outward flow of energy from a source. Si radiation, it is a energy. Now, it is a stream of particles or electromagnetic waves emitted by the atoms and molecules of radioactive substance as a result of nuclear decay. So, energy that comes from a source and travels through some material or through space. Kaya siya sinabihan na ano na transmission of this energy through space kasi po once na si radiation ay ah, once na sa radiation ay nagta-travel 'no, so wala siyang pinipili. I mean, wala siyang, hindi tinatamaan 'no. So, once na si radiation ay, nagawa or na-produce, so kahit saan 'no, kahit saan is magpa-pass through siya. Okay. So, gano'n po katindi si ating radiation. Kaya, kapag mataas yung radiation 'no na-produce tapos natamaan si patient or natamaan yung, certain part na hindi naman dapat tamaan ng radiation, so nagkakaroon tayo ng tinatawag na harmful effect or damage, 'di ba? So, kaya, importante ditong radiobiology para 'pag, nagkaroon na kayo ng work. So, alam niyo kung paano niyo mapoprotektahan ang inyong sarili at alam niyo rin yung, ah, knowledge about sa, dose 'no, sa dose na, nire-release niyo or yung ginagawa niyo sa X-ray tube or sa CT scan or sa mga, ah, machine na nagpo-produce ng radiation. Okay. So, nakalagay dito 'no, a stream of particles or electromagnetic waves. So, basically meron tayong two types of radiation. Ito yung tinatawag natin na particulate radiation or electromagnetic radiation. Okay, from the word itself, particles, basically, we're talking about alpha and beta particles. Okay? So sa particles or particulate radiation, we're basically talking alpha or beta particles. So sa beta particles, meron po tayong beta minus and beta positive. So madadaanan natin 'yan. Then sa electromagnetic radiation, meron tayong electromagnetic spectrum na tinatawag. Okay? So nandiyan si radio waves, microwaves, infrared light, ultraviolet, no? X-ray, tsaka si gamma ray. Ay, may visible light pa pala. So, radio waves, microwaves, infrared light, visible light, ultraviolet, X-ray, gamma ray. So, take note guys na si radio waves ang may pinakamababa, no, na energy, while si gamma rays po ang pinakamataas na energy. So, basically, isa siyang radiation is si gamma rays are ano, very, harmful po. Very harmful po sa ating katawan. So, si gamma rays 'no, ma-encounter niyo siya sa radiation therapy. So, siya yung nag, ah he-help para makapatay ng cancer cells, 'no? Kaya sa radtera 'no, talagang 'pag dun kayo nag-work dapat talaga may knowledge kayo about radiobiology, 'no? May mga equipment din since mataas naman si, gamma rays 'no, so possible na for an example sa breast 'no, nagkaroon ka ng breast cancer, tapos gagamitan ka ng, machine na naglalabas ng gamma rays. So, paano yun? Naiisip mo na parang, "Paano yun ma'am? Eh, di yung ano, yung mga heart, lungs matatamaan, pati yung ano, yung mga abdomen." So, meron tayong mga equipment 'no, na specifically for that, na para ma-prevent 'no, na matamaan yung mga, hindi naman dapat tamaan ng radiation. So, sa radtera ma-e-encounter niyo 'yan, yung lesson about diyan, kung paano nila nape-prevent or ano yung ginagamit nila na equipment 'no, para, maiwasan na maapektuhan yung ibang, ah, body organs or body part. Okay, so next na tayo. Okay, so meron tayong tinatawag na sources of radiation. Ito po yung natural sources and man-made. Okay, so medyo ano siya 'no, teka lang, wait lang guys, ayaw niya mag-exit. Ayan, wait lang. Wait lang guys, kasi nahirapan ako kaya dapat talaga PDF. Dapat talaga PDF siya. Hmm, ayan. Oops, cancel na natin 'to. Ayan, naka-PDF na siya. Okay, kita na 'no, kita naman na. Okay. So, meron tayong, sources of radiation. So, simulan natin sa natural sources. No, from the word itself, natural, ibig sabihin nandito na siya. Simula nung tayo pinanganak, simula nung tayo ay pinanganak ang mga parents, ang mga kanununuhan, simula ng mga Homo sapiens and sapiens, mga ganyan. So, natural na po na nandito na sila. Okay? So, natural, ibig sabihin by nature, existing na si radiation. So, meron tayong, tinatawag dito na 80% of human radiation exposure. So, basically, naturally occurring radiation accounts for approximately 80% of human radiation exposure. So, habang tayo nabubuhay na-expose na po tayo sa radiation pero minimal lang naman. Hindi siya yung talagang, artificially, employed or artificially na ginagawa ng mga, radtech. For an example, yung sa X-ray yun artificial yun. Okay, so Background radiation comes from a natural sources always present in the environment. So it consists of 4 components. Meron tayong cosmic rays, terrestrial radiation, internally deposited radionuclides, and radon. So si cosmic rays po, from the word itself cosmic, no? Parang sa mga sa outer space naman ito. Cosmic rays, sa outer space po yan, no? Then si terrestrial radiation from the word terrestrial, no? Parang, ano din, terrestrial, ibig sabihin parang may mga UFO, no? So, outer space din yan. Then internally deposited radionuclides and radon. So, si radon po yung, largest, element, no, na, nabubuhay. So, largest source siya, radioactive decay of uranium. It emits alpha particles. So, from the word itself, alpha particles, so si radon po ay considered as particulate radiation, no? Kasi nag-i-emit siya ng alpha particles. So, ito na nga, si cosmic rays emitted by sun and stars, then terrestrial, a long wave of electromagnetic radiation originating from Earth and its atmosphere deposits of uranium and thorium. So, pakialalahanin po yan. Si cosmic rays, terrestrial, internally deposited and radon, largest source. So, si radon po, hindi po nawawala sa board exam, pakitandaan. Radon, largest source of radiation. Now, on the other hand, ito na nga po tayo sa man-made or ang tinatawag natin na artificial sources of radiation. So, majority of the exposure is from medical x-rays, primarily diagnostic radiology. Smaller contribution from nuclear medicine. So, basically, guys, meron tayong tinatawag na diagnostic radiology and therapeutic radiology. So, anong pinagkaiba, no? From the word itself, diagnostic radiology, so yung machine po na ginagamit natin or yung machine po na specific machine ng diagnostic radiology is used for diagnosis, no? From the word itself, diagnostic, no? Diagnosis. So si machine, tinutulungan niya po yung mga doctors na ma-diagnose kung ano po bang meron kay pasyente. For an example, ngayon po may COVID patients, no? Dumating siya sa may nararamdaman siya na nawawalan ng panlasa and pang-amoy. So, ang gagawin niya is, pupunta siya ngayon ng hospital. So, paano po ba mako-confirm na si patient ay merong COVID, no? So, basically, ang ginagamit ngayon is yung rapid test and yung swab test. Pero other than that, mag-x-ray pa sila, mag-chest x-ray. So, sa paggamit ng chest x-ray, dagdag confirmation, no, if si patient is nagsasuffer ng COVID or wala. So, ganun din po pag may TB or tuberculosis, pulmonary tuberculosis, PTB, no? Pag may pulmonary tuberculosis si patient, ang ginagawa is nagpapa-x-ray, no? Para makita kung may kung mayroon pa ba siyang PTB or pulmonary tuberculosis. So, yun po yung diagnostic radiology. So, hindi lang po x-ray, medical chest x-ray or x-ray ang diagnostic radiology. Nandyan din po si ultrasound. Yan. Di ba? Pag ano, kapag may bukol na nararamdaman in ultrasound, for example, may bukol sa ovaries. So, para makita yon kailangan ng ultrasound. Okay? Then, ano pa ba? Yan, CT scan, especially the CT scan and the MRI, yan, diagnostic, yan, imaging yan. Para makita kung nasaan yung exact location, no, ng certain disease or certain problem dun sa ating katawan. Now, when it comes naman for the therapeutic radiology, no, so therapeutic, from the word itself, therapeutic, therapy, no, ibig sabihin, the machine is used for treatment, no? Treatment of the patient. So, ang pwede po dyan is yung rad therapy, no? Radiation therapy na mga machine, yung Linac accelerator and yung Cobalt-60 na machine. So, sila po yung machine na yun yung nagre-release ng mataas na rays, yun yung gamma rays, no? Gamma rays. So, para mapatay yung cancer cells. So, therapeutic siya. So, pwede din na therapeutic mga nuclear medicine, no, yung mga ganyan. Nuclear medicine, kasi po naglalagay po kayo ng radiation mismo sa loob ng katawan. So, meron po tayong object na nilalagay sa katawan na source talaga ng radiation, no? Para mapatay niya yung cancer cells. So, ganun po. So, meron tayong two types of radiology, diagnostic and therapeutic. Okay? So, sa MRI, yan. Meron namang both, no? Therapeutic and diagnostic. Sa MRI, yan. Diagnostic and therapeutic. Then, sa CT scan, diagnostic and therapeutic. Okay? Diagnostic, for diagnosis, no? Para matignan kung meron bang sakit si patient, kung anong klaseng meron siyang sakit. Then, si therapeutic, alam na yung sakit, so ang gagawin na lang is for treatment, therapy. Kaya nga po therapy. Okay? So, yun po. So, next is fallout from atmospheric testing of nuclear weapons consists of carbon-14, tritium, manganese, cesium, and cesium-136 and 137, barium-140, cerium-144, plutonium, transplutonium. So, hindi naman yan nakasama sa board exam. So, parang huwag nyo na lang din memorize. Pero at least alam nyo pa rin na meron po tayong tinatawag na nuclear weapons na. So, ito po yung ginagamit for mga gera. Opo. So, possible lang may mga ganyan, yung mga Russian, Chinese, yan. So, tayo wala pa tayong ganyan. Ang alam ko, wala pa tayong nuclear weapons. So, very, very harmful yan once na ma-expose ka sa ganyan. Okay? So, very harmful sa ating katawan. So, nuclear power production, known as the nuclear fuel cycle, C14 is the most significant contributor. Now, kung aware kayo sa Chernobyl, no, guys, okay? Bigyan ko kayo ng assignment about Chernobyl. Chernobyl disaster, no? Hindi ko alam kung kailan yun pero alam ko 1886 ba yun? 1896, something like that. Wherein, no, meron silang nuclear power plant, no? Na kung saan, nagkaroon ng problem and then nagkaroon ng major release of radiation sa entire town na humantong sa biological effects, no? Nagkaroon ng mga biological effects yung mga offspring ng mga na-expose, no? Ganun siya kalakas. Ganun kalakas yung epekto ng radiation ng time na yun, no? Dun sa specific na Chernobyl disaster. Up until now, guys, no? Meron pa ring emitting na radiation dun sa town na yun. Kaya nga walang tao dun Parang nag-evacuate na yung mga tao kasi sa sobrang lakas ng radiation. Now, dun sa Chernobyl disaster kasi nagkaroon ng problema. Humantong pa na naggawa sila ng dome, as in malaking dome para takpan yung mismong power plant. No, para hindi na kumalat yung radiation. Talagang naglagay sila ng dome. At hanggang ngayon, may dome pa din, pero numinipis siya. Numinipis dahil sa radiation. So, pag yun is, lumipis yung dome na yun, tapos nasira ulit, nako, major problem na naman yan. Kasi maapektuhan yung nearby countries, no? So, magkakaroon ng harmful effects sa katawan. Take note guys, mapapag-aralan din natin yan, all throughout sa ating SEM, nabubulol-bulol pa no? So, yun nga. Then, meron tayong nuclear power plant sa Bataan, no? So, tataka ba kayo bakit siya pinatigil? So, baka inisip nyo, baka dahil doon sa Chernobyl, hindi guys. So, magkaiba po yung Chernobyl na power plant production doon at Chernobyl power plant sa atin. Yung sa atin po sa Bataan, nuclear power plant siya, pero for power plant talaga siya. Yung sa Chernobyl kasi, for weapon production kasi yun. Nuclear power plant, pero weapon production. So, si Marcos, ang nagpatayo niyan, no? Kung yan ay ginagamit hanggang ngayon, naku guys, hindi nyo na kailangang magbayad ng kuryente. I mean, magbabayad pa rin pero sobrang minimal. As in, like parang siguro 300 na lang bayad niyo 'no, tapos isang buwan, 2 buwan lang, 300 gano'n. So gano'n ka-helpful po si power plant. Ngayon kaya siya pinatigil 'no, dahil akala po ni Cory Aquino na ang nangyari sa Chernobyl ay mangyayari din sa Pilipinas. So, wala pang gaanong knowledge si Cory about dun sa power plant na ginawa ni Marcos, pero definitely one of the reason din kung bakit din si, Cory Aquino ay hindi na tuloy ang paggawa or operate ng, power plant natin diyan sa Bataan is because ayaw niya lang si Marcos, ayaw niyang mabigyan ng credit si Marcos. Hindi sa sinisiraan ko po si Cory Aquino, pero once po na pumunta po kayo doon sa Bataan Power Plant 'no, pumunta na kasi kami doon sa Bataan Power Plant nung kami ay college 'no, maaano niyo yung stories behind that power plant kasi very helpful talaga siya. Kasi power plant nga, ibig sabihin nagbibigay power siya or electricity sa town 'no. So, kaya din siya ano 'no, pinag-isipan kasi yan ni Marcos. Actually yung power plant na yan is malayo po siya sa town 'no. Very ano siya, very isolated po yung place niya. So, kung sakaling may magkaproblema doon sa power plant na yun, at least wala pong maapektuhan na nearby places. So, napag-isipan na po 'yan ni Marcos. Kaso nga lang since pinatalsik na ni Cory si Marcos, so nasayang po yung power plant na 'yun. Hindi po siya nagamit ever since 'no. So, sobrang sayang kasi, very helpful sana siya ngayon sa ating sitwasyon, especially sa pandemic 'no, na suffer tayo, walang mga, ah, income yung mga tao and then kung may power plant at least hindi na sila 'no. Tsaka si Cory din kasi guys, ano, parang sila ata yung may-ari ng Meralco, yung mga Lopezes, yung mga ano, friends niya, gano'n. So, may politically kasi ano, politically involved. So, wala tayong ano dun. Dun lang sinasabi ko yung, importance ng nuclear power plant. Okay? So, meron pa tayong other potential sources of ionizing radiation. Ito po si industrial, consumer products, tourism and counterterrorism, art and religious artifacts, nuclear, AXI, then, excuse me. So, si industrial X-rays are used in testing cracks or defects in metal pipes and aircraft. Then, mining and agricultural activities, bricks, concrete, and granite, combustible fuels. Ibig sabihin ng combustible fuels, mga sumasabog po. Then, next, consumer products, smoke alarms. Yes, mga nakikita nyo po sa hotel. Gas lantern mantles, dental prosthesis, certain ceramics, optical lenses, uranium. Yan. Optical lenses, ginagamit yan. Then, tourism and counter-terrorism, kapag pumasok po tayo sa airport or sa Port of Batangas, no? Basta kung saan man mayroong port, no? Hindi po pwedeng hindi madaanan yung tinatawag natin na parang ilalagay mo yung bag mo, tapos may kita na sa machine, I mean, may operator na makikita kung ikaw ba ay may metal sa bag or may baril or may weapons, any means of weapons. So yun po. Gano'n din sa excuse me, gano'n din sa airport. Sa airport talaga kailangan din. Kaya nga 'di ba nalalaman nila if may bala yung airport. Alam niyo ba yung issue noon, yung parang bala gang? Yung nilalagyan nila ng bala yung bag para para hindi matuloy yung pag-ano nila, paglipad. Kasi once kasi na naanuhan ka ng weapon, di ka na makakalipad. Interrogate ka pa, investigate ka pa. Okay. So, next is art and religion. Ayun pala, dagdag kaalaman ko 'no, dagdag kaalaman pala, alam na pala 'to ni Gia 'no, na ang diamond kapag in-X-ray hindi siya makikita. Malalaman mong legit po ang diamond kapag in-X-ray tapos hindi siya makikita. I mean, ano, hindi naman sa invisible, kumbaga parang very, transparent 'no, hindi talaga siya Kumbaga parang pasok na pasok si X-ray doon, parang hindi nagbibigay ng density color 'no, hindi nagpuputi, hindi kaya po minsan, careful lang talaga sa paglagay ng mga mamahaling gamit 'no kapag, kunwari pumunta kayong Japan or what, or pupunta kayo ng kung ano tapos may dala kayong diamond or bumalik kayo ng Pilipinas, may gano'n. So, nagkakaroon po tayo ng tinatawag na pagnanakaw ng mga gamit kasi alam nila 'yan na meron kang, jewelry. So, basically ang mga Pilipino alam mo naman may mga masasamang loob diyan. Kaya yung iba nagrereklamo minsan, bukas na yung bag, bukas na yung mga balikbayan boxes 'no, kasi nakikita nila. Wala na yung mga relo, so nakikita nila yung nasa loob. Kaya ingat tayo 'no kapag tayo magta-travel around the world. Okay, so ito na yung art, religious artifacts, so X-rays for verification of genuine articles like paintings and shroud of Turin. So nuclear accidents in nuclear reactions and spills in the transport of nuclear material. So, ang nuclear accidents puwede po 'yun sa mga nuclear medicine 'no, kapag na-expose po or natapon yung ating nuclear, yung medicine. Kaya nga medicine, eh, yung pangalan nuclear medicine kasi yung, medicine mo is nuclear 'no, basically sobrang taas niyan. Okay, so ano daw ang mangyayari kapag si, radiation na absorb ng matter? 'Di ba nga sabi daw, radiation is the emission of energy that travels through space or or within matter, 'no? So, ano mangyayari kapag, na-absorb by matter? Gaya nga ng sabi ko kanina, kapag na-release si radiation, wala yang pinipili. Talagang diretso yan. Kung ano yung matatamaan niya, hindi niya iiwasan yan. So, ano mangyayari kapag na-absorb or natamaan? No, meron tayong dalawa ditong term, excitation and ionization. So, it occurs when the radiation excites the motion of the atoms or molecules or excites an electron from an occupied orbital into an empty, high energy orbital. So, basically, excitation. So, ang ating keywords dyan, it excites the motion of the atom. So, in-excites lang. Parang nagpakilig pero iniwan. Ganun po ang term. Pinakalig ka lang, in-excite ka lang, pero iiwan ka din. Kasi nag-pass through nga lang si radiation. While sa ionization naman, from the word itself, ion, no? So, nagpo-produce siya ng ion. Okay? So, it occurs when the radiation carries through energy to remove an electron from an atom or a molecule. So, another definition ng ionization, so nagpo-produce siya ng ions or tinatawag natin na X-rays. Yan po. Okay, bigyan ko kayo ng knowledge about that. Teka lang. Okay. Mag-drawing ako ng atom. Okay. Sa excitation, guys, ito po yung molecule. Molecule talaga. Ito po yung nucleus na. Ayan, nucleus. So, nandyan si proton and neutron. So, nucleus. Then, nandito po yung ating mga electrons. Okay? Sabi daw, excitation, no? Excites the emotion of atom. So, syempre, freely nagalaw yan si electrons. Now, si radiation, it is an energy that travels through space or matter. So, pag dumaan yan sa isang atom, yan, may excite lang siya. Kikiligin lang siya, parang magagalaw lang siya. Pero hindi siya matatanggal. So, magpapass lang din si radiation. So, na-excite lang siya. For example, dito din. Ma-excite lang siya. Hindi siya walang mangyari sa kanya kundi ma-excite lang. Baga parang nagalaw lang. Ginulo lang ni radiation yung electron. While kay ionization daw, carries enough energy to remove an electron from an atom or molecule. So, ito po yung molecules ulit, ay yung nucleus, then atom itong ginagawa ko. Okay? Tandaan, ang nasa loob ng natin is proton and neutron, while yung mga nasa labas po is yung tinatawag natin na electron. Okay? So, dadaan na si radiation. Since sobrang taas po ng energy niya, so ang tendency po niya, magkakaroon ng removal of electron. So, aalis na si electron. Mapupunta na siya dito. Yan. So, yun po yung tinatawag natin na X-ray. Yun yung ion. X-ray. Removal of electron. Ion. So, basically, pag excitation, excite lang. Then, dito po sa ionization, nakapag-produce na po tayo na tinatawag natin na X-ray or gamma rays. Okay? X-ray po. Okay? X-ray. Kapag naman, paano kapag dito sa nucleus? So, paano pag sa nucleus naman natamaan ni radiation? Now, since sobrang lakas ng energy, tapos natanggal si nucleus, so ang release naman yan is yung gamma rays. Gamma rays. Okay? So, take note guys, no? Ang pinagkaiba lang ng origin po ng X-ray at gamma rays is yung kanilang, ang difference between X-ray and gamma rays is yung kanilang origin. Wherein na si gamma rays ay na-ionize, no? Outside, no? Na-outside siya, galing siya sa nucleus. While sa X-ray is galing from electron. Okay? So, ionization, capable of removal of an electron. While si excitation is na-excite niya lang. So, sana maintindihan niyo yung principles nyo. Excitation and ionization. Okay. Okay, so classification of radiation, non-ionizing radiation, and ionizing radiation. Okay, so radiation una, then sunod, ionizing radiation. Okay, ionizing radiation. Okay, so sa non-ionizing radiation, it usually does not dislodge the electrons and is not considered as hazardous as ionizing radiation. So basically, hindi siya harmful. So meron tayong non-ionizing machine and ionizing machine. Okay? So, ibig sabihin ng non-ionizing, ibig sabihin po, hindi po siya nagre-release ng radiation or an X-ray, while kay ionizing radiation po, nagre-release ng X-ray. So, ano bang machine ang hindi nagre-release ng X-ray? So, number 1, ang tatatak dyan is yung ating ultrasound. Kasi po si ultrasound, ang ginagamit niya from the word of sound is sound echo ang ginagamit ni ultrasound. While kay ano naman, kay ionizing radiation, so CT scan po, no? Naglalabas siya ng matinding X-ray. Yan, mga X-ray. Then, sa another example din sa non-ionizing na hindi nagpo-produce ng radiation is si MRI. From the word itself, magnetic resonance imaging, ibig sabihin, gumagamit po si MRI ng magnet, no, para makapag-produce ng image. So, safe C, ultrasound and C, MRI. Then sa ionizing, so nandyan si PET scan, nuclear medicine, and so on and so forth. Okay. So, ultraviolet radiation, visible light, infrared radiation, microwaves, and radio waves are all non-ionizing. So, meron tayong 5 dito. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, no? So, 5 of the electromagnetic spectrum are non-ionizing. Ibig sabihin, hindi po harmful. Then, since meron po tayong 7 electromagnetic spectrum, so ano yung dalawa? Yun po yung X-ray at saka gamma ray. So, sila po ang ionizing radiation. So, radiation with less energy than that required to produce ions in the irradiated material. Now, sa ionizing radiation naman, it is capable of removing an orbital electrons from an atom. Since capable siya from removing, no, nakakapag-produce siya ng ion, no? Capable of producing ions, kaya tinawag na ionizing, sabihin, capable of producing ions as it interacts with matter. Any type of energy or matter-energy combination capable of ionizing matter is known as ionizing radiation. So basically, yung na-remove natin na electron, no, which is yung X-ray, so yun po yung ions na tinatawag. No? Hindi na electrons ang tawag doon sa X-ray, kundi yung ions. Okay? So baka natatandaan yung ion, hindi yung boyfriend, hindi yung vice ganda ha. Okay. So X-rays and gamma rays are the only forms of electromagnetic radiation with sufficient energy to ionized matter. Okay, so 7 po ang total ng electromagnetic spectrum natin. Radio waves, microwaves, infrared light, visible light, ultraviolet, X-rays, and gamma rays. So, X-ray, gamma rays, ionizing radiation. Then, yung 5 po na nauna is non-ionizing radiation. Pakitandaan po yun. Okay, so meron tayong types of ionizing radiation, direct and indirect. So, from the word itself, direct, ibig sabihin, charged particles, electrons, positrons, protons, alpha particles, heavy ions with sufficient energy to ionize atoms are molecules. So, tends to deposit its energy at localized range in materials. Ibig sabihin, direct. Direct. Ibig sabihin, nandiyan lang, mabilis lang siyang matamaan. Kumbaga parang from the source of mismong ionizing radiation to the target. While kay indirect naman, it's uncharged particles, photons, neutrons that set in motion directly ionizing radiation or that can initiate nuclear transformation. So, deposit its energy along its whole path. So, habang nagta-travel ngayon si radiation, no, nagde-deposit siya ng energy. Well, kapag kay ano kasi, kapag kay direct, parang isipin nyo lang, for an example, ano po magandang example sa direct ionizing radiation? For an example, X-ray. For an example, ito, X-ray. Tapos ito yung patient. Patient, no? Pangit ang drawing. Ayan, patient. So, direct siyang natatamaan. Okay, direct na tatamaan. Kaya nga po electrons di ba? Di ba sa X-ray galing sa electron? Okay, kaya siya natatamaan. Then dito sa indirect, for an example, yung radon, no? Habang tumatagal, nag-i-emit siya. So, habang tumatagal, humihina. For example, dito nagsimula yung certain radiation. Habang nagta-travel siya, humihina siya kasi nagde-deposit siya ng energy along its whole path. So, naglalabas siya ng energy. So, ano nangyayari? Ibig sabihin, nawawala ng energy. So, nanghihina ngayon yung mismong particle. Which is yung photons, neutrons, yan. Pag naman dito sa direct ionizing, no, ang ginagamit is charged particle, while kay indirect is uncharged particle. Okay, take note guys, yung charged particle natin is electron, positrons, protons, alpha particles, heavy ions. When yung uncharged natin is photon and neutrons. Okay, so sana nagigets niyo po yung aking gustong iparating. No? Habang tumatagal po, pag nagtatravel yung radiation or yung ating uncharged particle, nagre-release siya ng energy. While dito po kay direct ionizing radiation, isang bagsakan niyang i-deposit yung energy. While dito kay indirect, unti-unti niyang nire-release yung kanyang energy. Okay, so general classification of ionizing radiation. So meron tayong, okay guys, para maintindihan nyo, no? Okay, para hindi malito. Okay, radiation, non-ion and ionization, under ng ionization, direct, indirect, wait lang. Direct, indirect, types yan types. Ito yung types. Tapos dito yung classification, ito ay types. Tapos ito, classification, yung tinatawag natin electromagnetic spectrum at particulate. Okay? Ito, classification. Pangat na sulat. Okay, tandaan nyo. Radiation, may two types na radiation, non-ionizing and ionizing, under ng ionizing. Direct and indirect, types ng ionizing, direct, indirect. Tapos classification, electromagnetic radiation and particulate. Pakitundaan po. Mali to. Okay, so particulate radiation and electromagnetic radiation. So ito yung sinasabi ko na electromagnetic spectrum. So under po niyan is yung ating tinatawag na microwaves, radio waves, microwaves, infrared light, visible light, ultraviolet, X-rays, gamma rays. Then si particulate, si alpha at saka si beta. Kasi particles lang sila. Okay po? Okay, so type of radiation, nakita nyo dito, no? Si alpha at si beta. Then yung electromagnetic natin is si gamma and si X-ray. So ang symbol po niyan, ito, pakitandaan. At ito din. Then atomic mass number, lahat sila 0 maliban kay alpha. 4 lang. Ibig sabihin, sobrang bigat niya. Meron siyang 2 protons. No? So ang charge niya is +2. Then ang origin niya is nucleus. Same lang si beta. Nucleus din ang kanyang origin. Okay? Particulate to guys, ha? So, both sa particulate po ay origin ay nucleus, while si alpha lang po ang merong atomic mass. So, si beta wala. So, meron tayong beta minus and beta positive. So, ang charge po ni alpha is +2. Si beta minus, since minus 1 charge. And then si B plus, +1 charge. Okay? So, same si beta minus kay electron kasi ang charge po ng electron is -1 while si +1 is same kay positron or kay photon kasi +1 din yung charge niya, di ba? So, mamaya tingnan natin yan. Now, ito yung sinasabi ko sa inyo guys. Walang atomic mass si gamma ray at sa X-ray. Wala ding charge si gamma ray and si X-ray. So, basically, parang parehas lang sila. Pero hindi po. Ang pinagkaiba lang po nila is yung kanilang origin. So, kasama po sa board exam yan na the difference between gamma ray and X-ray is their origin. Dahil nung na-drawing ko kanina, no, si gamma ray is nanggagaling po sa nucleus, while si X-ray po is nanggagaling sa electron or sa electron cloud. Okay? Di ba pag na-excite, pag na-ionize, no, nakita nyo kanina? Sana clear. Okay, so particulate radiation, a stream of atomic or subatomic particles that may be changed positively or negatively or not at all, consisting of atomic or subatomic particles, which carry energy in the form of kinetic energy or mass in motion, also known as corpuscular radiation. So meron tayong other term ng particulate radiation, pakitandaan, corpuscular radiation. So there are two main types of particulate radiation. Ito po yung alpha particles and beta particles. Sige nga, anong charge ulit ni alpha particles? Positive. 2. Saan ang kanyang origin? Sa nucleus. Then sa beta particles, meron siyang B minus and B positive. Anong charge ni B minus? -1 at si B plus +1. Other term ng particulate, corpuscular radiation. So, alpha particles, it is ejected nuclei at some unstable atom. So, large subatomic fragments consisting of 2 protons and 2 neutrons. So, it is relatively heavy. So, sa sobrang bigat niya, guys, kahit sa papel, hindi niya kaya mag-pass through. Since hindi niya kaya mag-pass through sa papel, hindi niya rin kaya mag-pass through sa ating katawan. Okay? So, ganun po siya bigat. Then, identical to helium nucleus. So, it is discovered by Ernest Rutherford in 1899. So, take note with this. Ernest Rutherford, 1899, alpha particles. It has a very short range in matter. Kaya nga short range kasi mabigat siya. So, consequently, alpha radiation from an external source is nearly harmless because the radiation energy is deposited in the superficial layers of the skin. Okay, alpha particles. Beta particles po, ayun no, wait lang. Ito yung sinasabi ko guys, sa paper lang siya. Hindi niya kaya mag-pass through sa paper. Penetrating distances. So, sa plastic, lead, no? Ang X-ray hanggang lead lang, no? Pag hindi po kaya ng lead, concrete, 6 inches concrete po ang ginagamit sa room. Pag napansin nyo po, it's either lead room or concrete. Yung nakikita nyo na sa X-ray department. or sa radiology department. So, 6 inches concrete po ang kailangan, no? Equivalent po yun sa lead, sa thick ng lead. Okay, dako naman tayo sa beta particle. So, a beta particle is an electron emitted from the nucleus of radioactive atom. So, in terms of mass and charge, ibang-iba po si alpha. Okay? So, the only difference between electrons and negative beta particles is their origin. Okay? So, meron ding difference kay electrons and negative beta particles is their origin. Pero pare sila ng charge which is negative 1. So, high velocity electrons with an electrical charge of negative 1. So, Henry Becquerel po ang nakadiscover kay beta particles. So Ernest Rutherford, 1899, pakitandaan, alpha particle. Henry Becquerel, 1900. 1900. Okay. 1900, no? Si Henry Becquerel kay beta particles. Okay? Ayan. So, si beta particles naman, since medyo magaan na siya, hanggang plastic lang yung kaya niya. Hanggang plastic lang siya. Pero sa paper, nakakadaan siya. Okay, so positron. So, meron tayong tinatawag na positron or also known as beta positive. Okay? So, it is an antiparticle or antimatter counterpart of the electron. Since si electron po ay negative 1, no? And siya is positive 1, no? So, counterpart siya or ibig sabihin, opposite po siya ni electron. Okay? So, positively charged electron emitted from the nucleus of an atom during disintegration. So, identical to the electron or beta particle with the exception that it carries positive charge. So, parehas na parehas po sila ng electron, pero carries lang ng positive charge. Kaya tinawag din siyang antiparticle or antimatter. So, si Carl Anderson naman ang naka-discover in 1932. So, tandaan nyo, unang na-discover si alpha, Ernest Rutherford, 1899. Then si Henry Becquerel, beta, Henry Becquerel, Henry Becquerel, 1900. Then, huli na po si positron, positive 1, Carl Anderson, 1932. Pakandadaan. Carl Anderson, positron, 1932. Then, dito na tayo dumako sa electromagnetic radiation. So, tapos na tayo kay particulate. So, electromagnetic na. Okay? So, produced by vibrating electric charge and such as they consist of both and electric and magnetic components. So, pure energy with no mass and is like vibrating or pulsating waves of electrical and magnetic energy. So, from the word electro, no, electrical, magnetic energy. So, act as a stream of small packets of energy called photons. So, they travel at the speed of light 3 by 10 at 8 power meter per second. Speed of light 3 by 10, 8 meter per second. So X-rays and gamma rays are the only form of ionizing magnetic radiation of radiologic interest. Ito na yung radio waves, microwave, infrared light, visible light, ultraviolet, X-ray, gamma rays. Take note guys na si radio waves ang may pinakamababang energy while si gamma rays ang may pinakamataas na energy. Okay? Then, si radio waves, from the word itself, radio waves, no? Ibig sabihin, ito po yung ginagamit ng ultrasound din, no? Ultrasound, mga frequency sa radios, yan. Microwaves, of course, for heating our food. Yan. So, ingat-ingat tayo sa pagbantay-bantay sa ating microwave kapag iinit ang food, no? Kasi meron tayong minimal radiation na nare-receive. Then, infrared, no? Sa mga phones, yan. Sa mga clock, yan. Nagamit yan. Visible light. So, from the word itself, visible light, ibig sabihin ito yung mga nakikita nating light through our naked eye, no? Yung mga kulay, red, blue, orange, yellow, green. Mga ganyan. Blue, violet, hindi yun, mga ganyan. Then, ultraviolet light, direct from sun, nakukuha to sa sun, no? Then, mataas yan, no? Ultraviolet light is mataas ang kanyang energy wherein kaya niya patayin yung TB na virus. Kaya, pag napansin nyo, yung ultraviolet, meron yan sa mga TB docs, mga office na talagang nag-care out ng patient na may TB. Ayan. Very helpful ang ultraviolet sa pag-kill ng virus nun, yung TB. Then, kung napapansin niyo ultraviolet, like ginagamit din yan for contouring of faces, yung mga ganyan, yung mga ano. So, yun siya. Then, X-rays, gamma rays. So, sa infrared rin, no? Heat din yan, no? Pampatulong din yan para mag-burn ng fats. Pag may nakita kayo na sa mall, no? Yung parang nanginginig-nginig na nilalagay sa tiyan para pumayat. So, infrared po ang ginagamit doon. Okay, so radio waves have the longest wavelength, no, in the electromagnetic spectrum. So pag sinabi nating wavelength, so ano itsura ng wavelength? From the word itself, wavelength, sabihin po, ganito po siya. Wavelength, wave, parang wave. So take note guys, ang tawag sa taas, sa upper peak is crest, while dito is throw, pangit na sulat, throw or valley. Tapos ang tawag po sa wave, one wave, from this one to this one wave. Then, this one to this one, second wave. Okay? So, yan po yung wavelength. So, wavelength. Wavelength siya. Now, yung distance ng wavelength, malalaman mong longest wavelength, ibig sabihin, yung distance from this one to dito is mahaba. Now, meron kasing wavelength na ganyan. So, pag ganyan po yung wavelength, ibig sabihin meron siyang short wavelength. Kasi yung distance from here, and yung distance dito is short lang. Okay? So, doon po nagva-vary yung length, yung wavelength. So, pag ganyan, sabihin, long wavelength. Okay? Long wavelength siya. Okay, so it carries signals for televisions and cellular. So, take note guys, no? Na kapag mababa ang energy, mababa ang wavelength. I mean, mali pala. Kapag, sige, mamaya na lang natin siya iyan, no? Kapag longer wavelength, less energy. Then, less frequency. Okay, mamaya. Patasin niya. So, ito naman yung microwaves, longer microwaves, those closer to a foot in length are the waves which hit our foot in a microwave oven. Shorter microwaves are used in remote sensing. So these microwaves are used for radar like the Doppler radar used in weather forecast. So si microwaves is used for our food heating. So mas shorter na yung wavelength nito compare kay radio waves. Then infrared light, also known as IR, it lies between the visible light and microwave portions of the electromagnetic spectrum. So the primary source of infrared radiation is heat or thermal radiation. This is the radiation produced by the motion of atoms and molecules in an object. So basically guys, sabi dito, heat or thermal radiation. So ito yung ginagamit po for mga yung iba pang papayat, no guys? So yun. Ang papayat, yung mga nakikita nyo sa mall na binibenta na nilalagay sa tiyan tapos nanginginig-nginig. So, nag-release siya ng infrared heat. Okay, then visible light. Ito na po yung sinasabi ko, yung red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Okay? So, the only electromagnetic waves we can see, no, seen as the color of the rainbow. When all the waves are seen together, they make white light, no? So, pag nakita mo daw lahat ng colors, so magmimake ka ng white light. Kaso naman, kapag yung white light nag-shine through a prism or yung triangle, meron tayong sa laboratory, the white light is broken apart into colors of the visible spectrum, which is yung ating nakikita. Take note guys, no, na ang unit ng ating visible light is nm or nanometer. So, ang may pinakamababang nanometer dyan is yung red and yung violet ang may pinakamataas na nanometer. Kung hindi ako nagkakamali, mataas si red or mababa si violet light. So, confirm ko yan sa inyo. Okay, so ultraviolet light, UV light has a shorter wavelength than visible light. So, basically, pag sinabing shorter wavelength, mas mataas na ang kanyang energy kesa kay visible light. So, take note guys, no? inversely proportional po si wavelength kay energy. So, shorter wavelength, higher energy. However po si energy, direct proportional naman siya, direct proportional kay frequency. Pipicturean natin yan mamaya. Makita natin yan later. Okay, tama ako guys. Okay, mali pala ako. Dito sa ating visible light, please take note. Hindi ko ma-zoom in. Yan. Please take note guys na dito sa visible light na mas mataas nga si red, mataas ang ni red, mataas ang kanyang nanometer. So pag tinanong bigla, among the visible light spectrum chart, who or what color is has the highest nanometer or nm? So ang sasagot niyo po is si red kasi si red 700 nm yan. Then si orange 650. Then 600. Okay, 600. Then 550. Pag tinanong ko sa exam guys, lagyan nyo ng nanometer nm ha. Blue 500. Indigo 450. Then last but not least is our violet 400 nm. So mas mataas po ang nanometer ni red kesa kay violet. So take note with that guys. So, okay. Oops. Oopsie. Okay, no? So, 3 regions of UV. Meron tayong near, ultraviolet, far ultraviolet, and extreme ultraviolet. So, sa extreme ultraviolet, since extreme, ibig sabihin malapit na siya kay X-ray. Pataas na yung kanyang energy. While si far UV naman, ibig sabihin malapit siya sa visible light, wherein very safe lang siya. Then, far UV between near and extreme UV. Okay? Si ultraviolet, nakukuha natin yan saan? Sa sun. Sa sun po. Okay, X-rays have smaller wavelengths and higher energy than ultraviolet waves. So were first discovered by our father, the father of radiology, Wilhelm Conrad Roentgen in 1895. Okay, so kung wala po si our father, kung wala si Father Wilhelm Conrad Roentgen, wala po tayong profession ngayon and wala po tayong pinag-aaralan na radiation, biology, or radiobiology. Okay. So, X-ray production, no, through Bremsstrahl lang. Of course, electron, ayan. Then, target nucleus, tungsten. Then, magkakaroon ng electron cloud. Then, mapuproduce ng X-ray. So, meron tayong positive and negative sa side ng ating tube, which is the anode and the cathode. Okay? So, magsisimula muna kay cathode and then pupunta kay anode, then magre-release kay X-ray. So, mapapag-aralan niyo yung principle ng X-ray production sa ating rad physics. So, I'm not sure if meron po kayong rad physics or nagkaroon na kayo ng rad physics. So, matatandaan niyo yan or mapapag-aralan niyo yan. So, nakakapag-release tayo ng electron, no? Through thermionic emission. Thermionic emission yung heating of the tungsten. Okay, so next, just the only difference between beta particles and electrons is their origin. So same lang din po sa X-rays and gamma rays, origin din. So gamma rays are emitted from the nucleus of radioisotopes and are usually associated with alpha or beta emission. So X-rays are produced outside the nucleus in the electron shells. So nabanggit dito, no, associated with alpha or beta emissions. Bakit? Dahil ang origin po ng alpha and beta, kung natatandaan niyo, is sa nucleus din. So, same with gamma rays, sa nucleus din ang kanyang origin. Okay, naintindihan po? Okay, alam ko naintindihan niyo yan. So, gamma rays have the smallest wavelength and the most energy of any other waves in the electromagnetic spectrum. So, basically, kapag na-receive yan, medyo mataas na yung dose, no? These waves are generated by radioactive atoms and in nuclear explosion. So, gamma rays can kill living cells. In fact, which medicine uses to its advantage, using gamma rays to kill cancerous cells. So, ito yung sinabi ko or nabanggit ko kanina, guys, na si gamma rays ay ginagamit sa radiation therapy para mag-kill ng cancerous cells. Kaso, minsan kasi ang too much use of gamma rays can also kill healthy cells. So, meron tayong protective lesson, no? Kapag nag-rad na kayo, meron mga ano dyan, kung paano natin ma-prevent na ma-expose yung other part ng ating man. Yun yung paggamit ng mga lead blocks na tinatawag. Lead blocks. And nagtatattoo ng dot lang naman para yung location, no? Location nung pinag-x-ray yan is hindi nagagalaw. Kumbaga parang kung saan mo, dun kasi guys sa LINAC or sa LINAC accelerator and sa Cobalt 60 guys. Since Redterra nga siya, so very ano siya, no? Dapat kapag mag-expose ka, dapat specific yung pagkaka-expose mo. Dapat, for example, ngayon, nag-expose ka ng patient. Dapat make sure mo na next time na pagbalik ni patient is same pa rin yung location no in x-ray mo. Hala ma'am, paano yun? Paano pag tumaba yung patient? Paano kapag pumayat? Kaya po meron po tayong, kaya nagtatattoo sila ng dot lang naman for the exact location. Okay? Kung nasaan yun talaga. And ano naman yun, maraming procedure yun, mahirap. Okay, so gamma ray radiation, ay ito siya. So, hanggang lead din si gamma and X-ray rays. Then sa concrete naman, 6 inches. Ito yung tinatawag natin na electromagnetic spectrum. Ito yung sinasabi ko sa inyo guys, no? The longer the wavelength, the lesser energy, though lesser frequency. Ito kasi yung frequency guys, yung number of cycle. Frequency is the number of cycle in a wavelength. Yung number ng ganun. So, pag konti lang yan, 1. Oh, the less frequency. So, type natin. Although, alam na to ni Gia. Okay. Ilagay natin. Frequency equals energy. Energy, paano ba yung not equal? Energy, ganyan na lang. Not equal sa wavelength. Wait na lang. Low energy equals longer wavelength. So, lower frequency lower energy, lower, okay, yan siya guys. So, si frequency at energy ay directly proportional, while si energy and wavelength, also frequency and wavelength ay inversely proportional. Ibig sabihin, hindi sila magka-opposite. Okay, so ayan, si radio waves, microwaves, infrared visible light, ultraviolet, X-ray, gamma rays. Take note, sa X-ray and gamma rays, sila lang ang ionizing radiation, while si radio hanggang ultraviolet, sila ay non-ionizing. Take note na ang non-ionizing and ionizing ay type ng radiation. While si type ng radiation, type ng ionization, si nawala na ako guys. So, type ng radiation is non-ionizing and ionizing. Then under ng ionizing, si type of ionizing, direct and indirect, where pag sinabing classification of ionizing radiation, yun po si electromagnetic spectrum at si particulate radiation. Particulate radiation, alpha, beta, Okay. Okay, dito na tayo sa review of radiation quantities and units. So, meron tayong historical evolution of radiation quantities and units. So, ito yung skin erythema dose, the received quantity of radiation that causes diffuse redness over an area of skin after irradiation. Guys, kapag sobrang ano kasi guys, sobrang taas na na-receive mong x-rays, nagkakaroon tayo ng erythema or tinatawag na reddening of the skin. Erythema, reddening of the skin. Ibig sabihin, naapektuhan na po yung skin ng radiation. Okay? Ibig sabihin sobrang taas na. Now, going back to sa Chernobyl, no? Chernobyl, hindi lang po is erythema. Hindi lang erythema yung na-receive ng mga ng mga na-expose doon. Meron po na nagkaroon ng mutation, no? Mutation sa cells. Wherein nagkaroon po ng for an example, no? Ako na-expose ako nung for an example lang guys, na-expose ako sa Chernobyl. Then, after a year ng asawa ko, wala namang effect sa akin. Pero nung nanganak ako, ayun guys, dun siya nagkakaroon ng congenital factors, mga gano'n guys. Mga matagal yung effect ng radiation, may 10 years, 30 years, 20 years. So, mapapag-aralan natin 5 years, yan. Mga latent period, yan, mga words na ating ma-encounter. So, meron tayong ditong tolerance dose and threshold dose. So, ano pinagkaiba? From the words of tolerance or tolerate, ibig sabihin, ito yung kung hanggang saan kaya, no? Radiation dose to which occupationally exposed, ibig sabihin, as tayo yun, could be continuously subjected without any apparent harmful effects such as erythema of the skin. So, yung erythema of the skin naman, hindi naman siya harmful, pero meron ng effects kasi. Hindi siya harmful pero may effect na ng radiation. So take note guys, skin erythema dose, the received quantity of radiation that causes diffuse redness over an area of skin. Tolerance dose, continuously subjected without any apparent harmful effects. So, tolerance, ibig sabihin kung hanggang saan mo siya nato-tolerate, no? Kung hanggang saan mo kayang i-accept yung radiation. Then threshold dose, ito na po yung meron ng biologic damage. So dose radiation below which an individual has negligible chance of sustaining specific biologic damage. So threshold dose. Ito na yung medyo mataas na, no? Sabihin, capable na of having biologic damage. Excuse me. So meron tayong different threshold dose, no? So for example, gantong range, pwedeng magkaroon ng specific biologic damage. Then sa gantong range, for example lang, para mabaog ka, kailangan mo ng 500 na rad. Mga ganon. Kailangan mo ng 500 rad. So, ano yung 500 rad, ma'am? So, mamaya ma-encounter natin yun. So, meron tayong maximum permissible dose, MPD. So, it is a term used in the past to indicate maximum dose equivalent of ionizing radiation that an occupationally exposed person could absorb a specified time period without sustaining appreciable bodily injury. So, it is expressed in REM. So, ang radiation unit po ng ating MPD is REM, radiation equivalent man. Meaning ng REM, radiation equivalent man. Okay? So, the traditional unit used for radiation protection purposes. So, ang medical radiation unit natin dyan sa MPD is REM, stands for radiation equivalent man. Equivalent man. So, radiation equivalent man, ibig sabihin, hindi na kailangan explain, no? Logic na lang. So, yung equivalent kay man na radiation. So, effective dose equivalent, no? A quantity that is used for radiation protection purposes to provide a measure of an overall risk of exposure to ionizing radiation. So, overall, we're talking about overall risk. Sabihin, once na na-expose ka sa certain dose na ganito, ano yung risk na, yung overall risk na ma-receive mo doon sa exposure na na-expose ka. Okay? So, it takes into account the dose for all types of ionizing radiation to organs or tissues in human body being irradiated and the overall harm. So basically, we're talking about the organ tissues na dito sa effective dose equivalent. So overall risk. For example, na-expose sa gantong type ng gantong kalakas na dose. So isipin mo, anong mangyayari sa stomach, anong mangyayari sa tissues, anong mangyayari sa ano mo. So overall risk. Okay? So, in the human body being irradiated and the overall harm. So, or weighting factors of those biologic components for developing a radiation-induced cancer or for the reproductive organs, the risk, or genetic damage. Ito yung nasabi ko kanina. Expressed in SI unit sievert. So, pag sinabing SI, ibig sabihin ito na po yung ginagamit until now. Okay? Or in millisievert. In traditional unit, the REM. Yan. So, radiologic units, conventional, exposure. Yan. Okay, tandaan nyo yun guys. Sa MPD, okay? So, skin erythema dose, tolerance dose, and threshold. Skin erythema, okay, redness of the skin, no? Keyword natin dyan. Tolerance, yan, kung hanggang saan na hindi nagkakos ng harmful effects. Then, threshold dose, meron ng biological damage. Maximum permissible dose, ito yung hanggang parang maximum, from the word itself maximum na pwede mong ma-receive na dose, no? Express in REM, radiation equivalent man. Effective dose, equivalent, overall risk of exposure. We're talking about the organs and tissues. No? Express in SI unit. Meron kasing conventional unit and SI unit. So, Shevert po ang ating ano dyan, unit. Or millisievert or in traditional unit REM. So, ang traditional unit ni effective dose ay REM or radiation equivalent man. So, meron na tayong radiologic units. Ito yung conventional. Ibig sabihin yung dati pa. So, exposure, X po yung kanyang unit, no? The amount of ionization in air produced by the radiation. It is also defined as the charge liberated per unit mass of air measured in coulombs per kilogram or Roentgen. So, guys, hindi ko siya masyadong ma-explain sa inyo kasi ito na talaga yung nasa book. So, wala siyang other definition or other term. It is, yan na talaga. Okay? So, amount of ionization in air produced by the radiation. So, air naman siya. Hindi na to sa matter, kundi nasa air na, no? Hindi na siya, basta, hindi na siya yung within the structure na natamaan na talaga ng radiation, no? So, amount of ionization in air. Yung nag-o-occur yung ionization, ano nga ulit yung ionization? Yung removal of electron, no? Na nangyayari sa air, na napoproduce ni radiation. Okay? Exposure. Ibig sabihin, exposure, from the word itself, exposure, yung hindi pa siya tumatama, nasa air pa lang siya. So, once na tumama na sa'yo, yun yung tinatawag natin na exposure. Di ba? Kaya nga expose. Di ba? Hala, na-expose. Ibig sabihin na na-expose na ano ka sa air or sa certain na bagay. So, it is also defined as the charge liberated per unit mass and measured in coulomb per kilogram, CKG, or Roentgen. So, alalahanin na lang yan. Measured in coulomb per kilogram or Roentgen, R. Pero kanyang conventional unit is X, or exposure. Then absorb dose, from the word absorb, biological effects, usually are related to radiation absorbed dose. Ito yung mga na-absorb na, ito yung nandito na. Ito kasi nasa air pa lang. Then ito na-absorb na ng katawan. So the deposition of energy per unit must be ionized radiation in patient's body. Ito kasi amount of ionization in the air, ibig sabihin hindi pa tumatama sa katawan ng patient. While pag tumama na, absorbed dose na po ang tawag. So deposition of energy per unit mass by ionizing radiation in the patient's body. Then RAD, radiation absorbed dose, no, is the unit most often used when one is describing the quantity of radiation received by a patient. So take note guys, 100 rad is equals to 100 gray T. Okay? Rad is the unit, guys. Rad is the unit of absorbed dose. Radiation absorbed dose, RAD, is the unit most often used. So 100 rad is equals to 100 gray. Pakitandaan, meron po tayong conversion technique dito, ha? Okay, next is equivalent dose, the product of the average absorbed dose in a tissue or organ in the human body and its associated quality factor chosen for the type of radiation in question. 100 rem is equivalent to 100 SV or Shevert, product of the average absorbed dose. Ibig sabihin, yung pinag-uusapan na naman tayo ng tissue and organ. Di ba kanina mayroon din tissue and organ? Ayan. Effective dose equivalent, no? So, may pinag-uusapan tayo na organ or tissue, yung overall risk. No, same lang din dito sa equivalent dose, no? Average na nung absorbed dose. Ibig sabihin, yung total average, kumbaga parang yung na-receive ng patient, yung sa organ niya na stomach, ano yung tumama doon, kung nasaan ba, and what, kung gaano kalakas, no? Yung average nun, no? Nung tissue and organ na na-expose, no? So, yun po yung tinatawag natin na equivalent dose. So, 100 rem is equals to 1 sievert. So, dose equivalent, meron tayong dose equivalent, sievert naman, absorbed dose. Dose equivalent or equivalent dose, pares lang yan. Dose equivalent, sievert, is equals to absorbed dose, gray, times QF. Ito yung ating quality factor times quality factor. Ito yung ating equation. So, the value of radiation quality factor, QF, is characteristic of each specific type of radiation. Yung quality factor kasi, guys, for an example, sa stomach, yun nga, may specific radiation tayo doon, dose, no? May dose tayo, equivalent dose. Kaya equivalent dose kasi, for an example, stomach, may equivalent dose for that. Then, kay eyes, may equivalent dose for that. Equivalent, ibig sabihin, equal na dose na pwedeng maka-apekto dun sa mismong organ. So, medyo magulo, no? Medyo magulo talaga ako mag-explain. Pero ganyan siya, guys. Equivalent dose. Sipin nyo lang yung mismong word, equivalent dose ng certain tissue or organ na na-absorb ni patient. Product, ibig sabihin na-absorb na. So, ano yung equivalent dose, no? Doon sa tissue and organ na na-receive ni patient. So, yun siya. Please take note, 100 rem is equals to 1 SP. So, QF is the biological effectiveness related to type of radiation. So, types of ionizing radiation, X-ray photons, beta, gamma, thermal fast neurons, high energy external neurons, alpha particles. So, ito yung quality factor nila. So, sa X-ray photons, meron tayong 1, beta particles 1, gamma photons 1, thermal neutrons 5, fast neutrons 20, high energy external photons 1, low energy internal photons 2, alpha particles 20. So, si alpha particles, ang pinaka mataas na may quality factor, although heavy siya, no? So, hindi naman siya nag-aano sa ating katawan. Okay? Obtained by multiplying absorbed dose by the radiation weighing factor or UF. Okay, so equivalent dose is equals to D times quality factor. So, ano yung D? Absorbed dose? So, ano yung D? Distance. Char. So, ito, sievert equals gray times quality factor. So, pag hinahanap yung gray, so, de-derive lang. No? De-derive lang. De-derive mo lang yan. Para para mawala. Okay, so example, an individual received the following absorbed doses, 0.1 gray of radiation and 0.5 gray of fast neutrons and 0.2 of alpha particles. What is the total equivalent dose? Okay, so ang itong equation, equivalent dose is equals to D times QF plus dxQF squared plus dfxQF third. Kasi madaming ng ano. So, kasi madaming absorbed dose eh. 'Di ba? Ito yung ano natin sa absorbed dose. Wait lang. Ito guys, oh. Gray plus QF. May X-ray photons kanina, then may fast neutrons, 'di ba? And merong alpha particles. So, tatlo. Tatlo yung DX quality factor natin dyan. Kasi 1, 2, at saka 3. Yung quality factor natin na X-ray, quality factor na fast neutrons, and yung quality factors natin na alpha particles. So, tatlo din. So, ilalagay mo dyan yung 0.1 gray. So, ano ba yung quality factor ni X-ray photons? So, 1. Ano ba yung quality factors ni fast neutron? 20. 'Di ba? Ayan, 20. Then, ganun din si alpha particles na 20. So, pagta-times mo lang yan, times mo muna to, gamit tayo ng PEMDAS, no? So, multiplication, 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 and then, a-add sa lang lahat. So, ang sagot is 5.1 sievert. Equivalent dose, no? 5.1 sievert. Tandaan po yung ating unit, no? SV. So, ito, solve nyo to. Pero ang sagot daw 510 rem. So, individual receive following observed doses, 10 rods of radiation. So, 10, 5 rods of fast neutrons, and 20 rods of alpha particles. So, what is the total equivalent dose? So, parang ganun lang din po yan dito sa kanina. Okay? Kaso meron ng unit, rods. Kaso bakit rem? Siyempre, kinonvert. Okay? Kinonvert yan. Kinonvert po yan. 100 rad is equals to 100 gray. 100 rem is equals to 100 SV. Ayan. Okay, so a tissue of organ were exposed to 0.15 gray, 15 rad of cobalt 60 gamma rays plus 0.02 gray of 1 MeV neutrons. What is the total equivalent dose? So, ayan. So, hindi mo na tayo magaganyan kasi wala namang ganito sa board exam eh. Pero tuturuan ko pa rin maganyan. So, magkakaroon tayo ng another video about dyan kung paano conversion. Pero this time, lecture muna. Okay, so effective dose, it incorporates both the effect of the type of radiation used and the radiosensitivity of the organ or body part irradiated through the utilization of appropriate weighing factors. So, all parts of the body and organs are not equally sensitive. So, ito po yung sinasabi ko kanina. To the possible adverse effects of radiation. So, there are certain dose po na specifically for a certain body parts. For an example, yung sa brain natin, sa muscular and sa neurons. Yan. So, meron tayong tinatawag na term na radiosensitivity and radioresistive. So, from the word sensitive, no, sila yung mga body parts na kung saan sensitive talaga sila sa radiation. While yung resistive naman, sila yung hindi niya based dun sa structural na composition ng parts. So, nagiging radio-resistive sila. Resistive meaning hindi masyadong naapektuhan ng radiation. Pero may effect, pero hindi pa rin naapektuhan. Unlike kay radiosensitivity, no? Sensitive, sabihin, madaanan ng radiation, very sensitive na or mabilis matamaan. Now, take note lang guys, no, sa living things, no? Pang second po ang human sa pinaka-radio sensitive. Ang pinaka-radio sensitive po sa living things is yung pig. Pig po. While yung radio resistive naman, last po yung pinaka-radio resistive natin dyan is si cockroach po. Yung cockroach. Kaya nga kaya nila mag-survive, no? Sa mga nuclear pagsabog ng mga nuclear, yan, nakapag-receive sila. Yung katulad sa Wall-E, kung napapansin niyo, di ba may friend siya doon na ipis. So, yun. So, sabi nga daw nila kapag daw na-extinct na lahat, ipis daw hindi pa din. Okay, so it expressed in sievert or in rem, radiation equivalent man, si rad, radiation absorbed dose, no? Effective dose, EDD, is equals to absorbed dose, GY times WR, weighing, yan, WR and WT. So, ito yung mga weighing factors. Okay, weighing factor natin sa gonads, ito yung ating genitals, no, 0.25. Sa breast, 0.15. Take note guys, no, paki-screenshot. Paki-screenshot po ng mga ganito natin at paki-alalahanan. Red bone marrow, lung, thyroid, 0.03. Bone surface, 0.03. Remainder. Yung remainder parts, no, for the remaining organs or a value of 0.05, 06 is used for each of the 5 organs receiving the highest dose. Total body weighing factor is 1, 2. Okay. So the radiation weighing factor for alpha particles is 20 and the tissue weighing factor is for the lungs is 0.12. So ang ano po natin diyan, tissue, no? Tissue weighing factor and radiation factor. So ang equation natin for effective dose is absorbed dose which is gray times tissue weighing factor and times radiation weighing factor. Ito po yung radiation weighing tissue weighing factor po ito. Okay? So, given naman po madalas ang ating radiation factor na 20. Ito po, nakalagay dito. Given naman lagi ang radiation factor. So, pagta-times mo lang yan, 20 times 0.2 gray times 0.12. So, ang sagot po is 0.48 Shepard. So, yun lang naman. So, pagta-times lang naman sila. So, meron tayong collective effective dose determined as the product of the average effective dose for an individual belonging to the exposed population or group and the number of persons exposed. So, the radiation unit is person Shepard. So, previously referred to as man-rem. Okay? So, take note guys, no? Kung sakaling magkakaroon tayo ng ganito, bibigyan ko naman kayo ng equation. Tapos meron din ng mga radiation factors. So, sarang madali lang. Para i-times nyo lang. Gusto ko lang na makita nyo, na naintindihan nyo na very essential din ito. Okay? So, if 200 people receive an average effective dose of 0.25 SV 25 rem, the collective effective dose is 200 times 0.25 equals 50% Shepard, 5,000 man rem. Example daw, if 200 people receive an average effective dose of 0.25 SV, kasi 100, 100 SV, 100 rem is equals to 1 SV. So, the collective effective dose is 200 times 0.25 is equals 50% Shepard. So, yun yung collective effective dose natin. Okay? So, pagta-times lang naman. So, radiologic, ito pa, another radiologic activity units, no? Activity, it is defined as the number of nuclear disintegration per unit of time. Pakitandaan, activity nuclear disintegration per unit of time. So, the older unit is the Curie. Curie, si ating Mother Curie, naka-receive ng Nobel Prize noong 1901. So, siya yung nag-discover ng thorium at uranium, kung di ako nagkakamali. So, equivalent to 3.7 times 10 to the 10th power disintegrations per second. Pakintandaan, 1 Curie is equals to equivalent to 30.7 times 10 to the 10th power DPS or disintegration per second. So, the millicurie, no? And the microcurie are common quantities of radioactive material. Pakitandaan, millicurie and microcurie common. So, meron tayo dito tinatawag na air kerma, kinetic energy released in matter. Pakitandaan, kerma, kinetic energy released in matter. So, air kerma is the unit of radiation exposure or intensity. Intensity na na-receive ng patient. Yung intensity ng mismong radiation exposure. Okay? So, kinetic energy is transferred from photons to electrons during ionization and excitation. So, si kinetic energy, it is an energy that possesses in motion. So, basically, once na nandyan si kinetic energy, sabihin may motion pong nagaganap. So, it is transferred from photons to electrons during ionization and excitation. So, meron pong air kerma na na-receive once na si radiation ay nagta-travel through space. So, absorb those po, the gray yung tawag, no? Is the unit of radiation absorbed dose. Okay? Gray, unit of radiation absorbed dose. Radiation energy absorbed per unit mass and has units of J per kilogram or gray YT. So, SI unit na to guys ha. Baka nagtataka kayo, hala ma'am, ano yung kanina? Rad. Okay. So, ang absorbed dose po natin, no? Ang kanyang conventional or yung lumang unit na ginagamit is rad, while yung SI unit or yung ginagamit internationally ngayon, no, is gray. So, baka nalilito kayo, ha? Okay, Shepard, used to express the quantity of radiation received by radiation workers and population radiation. So it is used to express the quantity of radiation received by radiation workers and population. So tayo yan, radiation workers. So si Becquerel, no, kung naalala si Henry Becquerel in 1900, may na-discover siya. Ano kaya yon? Ano particle? Beta particles. How about naman si alpha? Si Ernest Rutherford, 1899, while si Carl Anderson, 1932, sino siya? Si positron or si beta positive antimatter or counterpart ni electron na nag-aano ng charge na positive 1. Okay, so the unit of quantity of radioactive material, not the radiation emitted by the material. Okay, so it is the unit of quantity of radioactive material. So basically, we're talking about radioactive material. Ano kaya yon? So hindi yung radiation, no, na nai-emit ng mismong material. So we're pertaining to the object, which is the material. Okay, so ito yung ating quantity, no guys. Okay? So, ito yung exposure, absorbed dose equivalent radioactivity, then Roentgen, name niya, no, rad or X, then REM, rad, radiation absorbed dose, REM, radiation equivalent man, then Curie, no, then yung symbol nila, exposure is R, absorbed dose, yung symbol niya is rad, dose equivalent REM then yung kanyang sa radioactivity is yung CI. Okay? Okay, so air kerma, name. Sa international unit naman, yung exposure is air kerma. Yung international na unit naman natin for absorbed dose is gray. Then si dose equivalent is Shevard. So isa-isa lang po yan ha. Then si Becquerel, si radioactivity. So ang conventional unit or customary unit is Curie. Then yung SI is si Becquerel. So isa lang sila. Okay? So medyo nakakalito na. Sabi dito, multiply R by 0.1 to obtain GYA. Ano ba yung GYA? Yung ating air kerma. Okay? So, multiply rad. Sino ba yung rad dyan? Absorb dose by 0.1 to obtain gray YT. So, ito yon. REM by 0.1 to obtain Shevert. Then, CI by 3.7 times 10 to the 10th power disintegration per second or DPS to obtain Becquerel. Okay? So, conversion factor tayo. Okay? So, for example, ito yung given sa question, no? So, para ma-obtain mo yung itong symbol na ito, para ma-obtain mo to, so, kailangan mo siyang i-times or i-multiply sa 0.1, no? Si R, si exposure, si absorbed dose, at saka si dose equivalent ay parehas lang na 0.01 siya eta times. Okay? Pero si CI or si Curie, kailangan siyang i-multiply sa 3.7 times 10 to the 10th power of disintegration per second or DPS para makapag-obtain ng Becquerel na symbol. Okay? So, we're a conversion factor po ito. Okay, thank you. Yun lang. So, next, so later magpo-produce ako ng, since hanggang 3 tayo, no? Pakinood naman 'to, 'no? Tapos magpo-produce tayo ng assessment about this. Okay po? Actually si Gian okey na 'no, Gian? So, okey lang kahit ano, mag-comment ka na lang napanood mo 'to kasi may another lesson. So, ang ipapaano ko lang naman, papa-exam is yung dun sa tatlo pa. Okay? Yung in-exam mo Lynn last week, para lang makahabol sila. Okay po? Thank you so much for listening. So, I hope you guys learned. So, if meron po tayong katanungan regarding, alam ko medyo magulo na yung bandang radio quantity units, pero I'm hoping na nagigets niyo yung concept, no? When we're talking about absorbed dose, so exposure. So, exposure, ibig sabihin, nasa air pa lang yung ionization. Wala pa sa mismong katawan ng patient. So, once na nandun na siya sa katawan ng patient, yun yung tinatawag natin na absorb dose. Okay? Observe dose. Okay? So, then yung equivalent dose, no? Yun yung total overall risk. Ibig sabihin, since na-observe na yung katawan, ano yung overall risk na pwedeng ma-experience ni patient? Like for an example, we're talking about tissues and organs na, di ba? So, ano yung risk doon sa organs and tissues? Then, doon na po papatak yung tinatawag na weighing factors, tissue weighing factors, yan. And tissue and radiation weighing factors. So please, mag-aral po. I'll be providing your PowerPoint, no, after the assessment. Okay, guys? So, let's be strict, no, about that, no? So, I'm hoping na mapanood nyo to, please lang, no? So, let's take it into consideration. Okay, guys? Thank you so much. If you have any problems or violent reactions, so please, you may do so. Message me, no? So I can make another PowerPoint video presentation for you to better understand the topic. Okay po? Thank you so much. God bless you so much. Bye-bye.